Hello everyone, welcome to First Light, a series of videos where I shine some light on some new upcoming games. The game we'll be discussing today is Visions of Mana, which will be releasing in 8 days from today. This is a new entry in the beloved Mana series, which I believe the last new mainline entry was a couple decades ago, or close to about 20 years. Now I know we got the remake of Secret of Mana, and we got the remake of Trials of Mana, and we got the Collection of Mana, but this is an entirely new entry in the series. So Square Enix has released a demo that can be downloaded now, and progression can carry over to the main game. I've just finished playing the demo, and so here are some of my initial thoughts. And before I get into them, I want to kind of discuss a little bit about this series and the idea behind it. Essentially, this is a first impressions. I'm not going to go too far into the narrative. I'm not going to go too far into the world building. It's a general brief discussion on my initial impressions of the game, whether I'd recommend you purchasing it or waiting for a sale or not buying it at all. So let's get right into it. When the initial release of the remake of Trials of Mana came out, I actually really enjoyed that game, so much so that it was the first video that I uploaded on this channel, which was a review for the game. Besides that, I am a fan of the Mana series, so I'll try not to show any bias during this discussion. And let me start by saying Trials of Mana certainly left a big shoe to fill for another Mana title. That was an excellent remake of a beloved game that we actually never got in the West, in which we finally did get the original version and the remake. And it was spectacular. I thoroughly enjoyed it. In fact, it was one of my favorite games that I played that year. And I'm happy to say Visions of Mana builds off of what Trials of Mana established in the sense of its aesthetic. It still shares that same visual style, but essentially it has been turned up. In Visions of Mana, the world is beautiful. Cell shading looks phenomenal. Character models look great. The world is so colorful. And it's definitely more of an open world game as well. I wouldn't say full on open world, but definitely more sandbox-ish. Not as linear as Trials of Mana was. I've always personally enjoyed the art style in most of the Mana titles, and Visions of Mana really does a great job of bringing everything together and making it look spectacular. It is just such a gorgeous game to look at. Reminds me of a bit of Granblue Fantasy Relink, which I played earlier this year, so it kind of shares that same aesthetic a little bit. Now in the demo you have 3 playable characters that you can play as, and they all vary on their fighting styles and what weapons they have. I primarily played as Val, which seems to be the main protagonist, and jobs are returning, so yes, you can actually change your characters into certain jobs that you would like, which would change what elemental abilities they're able to use, what weapons they can use, which is great because this definitely is a deeper system than what Trials of Mana had, and that's nothing to say bad about Trials of Mana, but it just goes a little deeper, which is really nice. Combat felt really fast and fluid. I actually really enjoyed the added mobility with the double jump and the little air dash that you have. In Trials of Mana you had a bit of a dodge roll, but in Visions of Mana you definitely feel like the characters have more mobility to them, which is really nice in an action JRPG. And there's also a lot of customization to the combat too, depending on what job you have, what elemental affinities you have equipped. I mean, you can really have a nice full decked out kit. And you can also upgrade some of these abilities too, which is really nice. Along with that, you do have essentially a super or finisher move. Once you've done enough damage to an enemy or done enough attacks in general in a battle or over time, you can hold down or hit L2 and you will use that character's essential finisher, we could say. And these look really cool. The animations are spectacular for these. I really enjoyed using them during boss fights or just general crowd control. But needless to say, the combat is actually pretty deep, which is really nice. I don't want to make too many comparisons to Trials of Mana, but that's the last game that we have to compare it to, and I really hold that game to a high standard because I thought it was spectacular. And Visions of Mana really takes that formula and adds so much to it. The combat is a lot deeper, and what you can do with it in Visions of Mana so far from what I played in the demo is just so much more than what you could do in Trials of Mana. And I know I talked about this briefly, but the game is huge. It is definitely big. It's got a lot going on. There's side quests that you can do. There's certain environments and secret areas that you can find. It's a really beefy game from what I've played, of course. I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation, but I believe it's a Pikul? P-I-K-U-L. I could be wrong on that, but you can mount that and actually ride it around environments, which is really nice. There's also certain spots in areas that you can use as save points and fast travel points too. So from what I've played of the demo, it seems like there's definitely a lot to do, and it'll definitely be keeping players' attention and time. Now the demo isn't that long, so I couldn't get a full-on grasp of how the soundtrack would be, but from what I played, it sounded good. Like I said, Trials of Mana and Secret of Mana, those are big shoes to fill when it comes to soundtracks. Secret of Mana is actually one of the best and one of my favorite personal video game soundtracks to date, and Trials of Mana is another excellent one. And so far from what I played, it didn't sound terrible. It wasn't that bad, or bad really all in general, but it definitely, I was waiting for that, like catchy moment where I was really kind of getting into the feel and the atmosphere of the game with the soundtrack. And Visions of Mana definitely has that, but so far from what I've played, it's a little bit lacking. And obviously I can't really say too much because I haven't played the full game yet. So from what I've played so far, it's okay. It serves its purpose. It definitely sounds like a Mana game soundtrack, but it's kind of missing a little bit of that oomph. And I think I'd probably get there once I experience a little more of the game. I think the best way to sum this game up is it really feels like a current, to-date Mana game. The world feels fleshed out, the towns are lively with people and side quests, shops and things going on. It just feels like a current Mana game from the Mana series, which I feel like is a bit obvious, but it's just so nice having that when this series has been dormant for so long, excluding the remakes. So to have a full-on brand new Mana game is just so awesome, and a good one at that, from what I've played so far. I would highly recommend checking out the demo. It's free, of course. Download it. It's about an hour. Could run you a little longer depending on what you do and how much you want to explore, but it's definitely worth the download. In my personal opinion, I think this is a day one pickup. I mean, I've already pre-ordered the collector's edition that's exclusive to Square Enix's online store, but I cannot wait for this. It's going to be a little bit till I get to it because my backlog's kind of heavy, and I wish I could do a full-on review, but I just do not have the time. But thank you guys for watching. See you in the next video.